So you've got your console or your PC, your screen, your games, maybe a good sound system. You have the essentials for your gaming setup. But what else can you do to enhance your gaming experience? You can have a perfectly good time with just these things. With just some more stuff, you can have the gaming setup of your dreams. In this feature, we'll talk about a few things you can do to that end. Some essential, others not so much. A comfortable chair. This is probably the most obvious choice. Unless you're playing VR, you'll be doing most of your gaming sitting down, so it goes without saying that you'll need a good, comfortable chair. There are lots of really great options out there for this purpose, chairs that have proper lumbar support or are comfortable enough for long gaming sessions. Maybe even looking into getting one with cup holders or other options. Good lighting. Lighting is quite important whenever you're spending time looking at a screen. You want to ensure that you don't have any light that casts a glare on your TV or monitor, but you also don't want to be sitting in a completely dark room for long stretches either, unless you're playing a horror game, of course. Make sure the room that you're playing in has good lighting that can complement your gaming experience. LED strips. Let's stick with lighting for just a second. Good lighting is essential, and while that is, of course, the bare minimum, you can take things a step further because lighting can be a great tool for setting the mood too. Get some LED strips and put them on a wall behind your screen, and voila, you have even better mood lighting in your room. Maybe even look into getting strips that can change colors, and change those colors to set the tone before getting into a long gaming session. Cable management. This is something that can be quite essential for many people, especially if you have multiple consoles, or the dreaded hell of cables known as PlayStation VR. You want your cables to be neat and organized, not only to avoid the mess, but also to be able to sort through them efficiently whenever you need to. Look into getting cable holders, Velcro cable sleeves, and cable boxes. If you can't get your hands on any of those, maybe try using duct tape or strings. Cable management is essential, so make sure you check that box. Controller grips. These are by no means essential, but can come in quite handy, especially if you're really into the competitive gaming scene. The best of the best controller and thumbstick grips out there do have an impact on performance, but even if that's something that doesn't concern you, these can still be pretty useful, especially because they also help a great deal with making controllers much more comfortable to use. Keyboard brush. If you're using a computer on a regular basis, a keyboard brush is something that you should have and even use even if you don't play games too often. Keyboards are prone to getting dirty for obvious reasons, and if you ignore cleaning them every now and then, they can get, well, pretty nasty. Use a keyboard brush regularly and you can at least make sure that you keep them functioning well. External HDD. As games become larger and larger by the year, having external storage for your gaming setup becomes more and more necessary, especially if you're more into digital purchases. You don't want to constantly be deleting, downloading, and re-downloading games, so having external memory can be a huge help, especially if your console doesn't have too much internal memory. Also make sure that you do some research before buying a hard drive, because you don't want to end up with one that runs at a snail's pace. Wall mounts. Again, this is not as essential as some of the other entries on this list, but having wall mounts can help you keep your gaming setup clean and organized. Placing your consoles and controllers and games and what have you on wall-mounted shelves rather than cramming them all onto a single table is a great way to ensure that you don't end up with too much clutter to deal with. Art and posters. Any great gaming setup needs sprucing up, and what better way to do that than by hanging up posters and art from your favorite games or even movies, TV shows, or books. Maybe even hang up some of those LED strips we talked about earlier around your favorite posters and art to give them an even better look and make them pop even more. Figures. Once more, by no means a necessity, but just like having art and posters, having figures, toys, or collectibles from your favorite games can be a great way to spruce up your gaming setup. There's no shortage of ways to do that. Other than simply buying specific figures or collectibles, deluxe editions of games also come with some really cool stuff, while there's also things like Amiibo that you can collect. Foot hammock. This one is all about comfort, and maybe something that some really good chairs might preclude. But if you find that you want something for the comfort of your feet as well, you can look into buying a foot hammock and hang it up under your desk. For particularly long gaming sessions, these can be an absolute essential part and make those long gaming hours much more comfortable. Headset stand. A good gaming headset can be an essential part of your gaming experience, especially if you're into multiplayer games, so there's a pretty good chance you already have one of those. But also make sure you have a proper, dedicated headset stand. It's better to have a place where you can neatly put your headset back when you're done, rather than just throwing it back on your table. Plenty of room. This one isn't something that applies to every single person out there, and yes, obviously it's something that may not be in your control at all, but having plenty of room is basically a necessity if you're into VR gaming. Nearly every single VR headset out there hinges on users having a certain amount of space to move and look around. That goes hand in hand with the very nature of the medium, while some higher-end headsets, like the Valve Index for instance, make that even more of a requirement. Again, this isn't something that's always in your control, but if you are thinking of getting a VR headset, make sure you have enough room for it in and around your gaming setup. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.